This is the official position of the Democrat Party. It's what the party stands for. There is no atrocity, no matter how horrific, that would be unacceptable to them. That's why ICE officers are being shot at and run over. It's why child killers are walking free and psychopaths are on the ballot for Attorney General. Well, we began the show by talking about the decision by a Democrat-appointed parole board to release a homicidal maniac who murdered a 6-year-old boy by stabbing him in the head. Kind of decision that in the not-too-distant past you would expect to elicit immediate condemnation from both parties. That's because for all of our differences, both Democrats and Republicans understood that it's a great and unfathomable moral evil to butcher a child as he sleeps. We agreed that demons who brutally murder kids should never be a part of civilization ever again. Which is about the lowest bar imaginable, but all, at the same time, for most of our country's history, that bar has held. Well, it doesn't hold anymore. Now, we are past the point where Democrats can claim that only a small minority of their party affirmatively support the murder and lawlessness. Less than a month after thousands of Democrats openly celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the Democrat Party establishment has decided as a matter of policy that it is not necessarily opposed to the murder of innocent men, women, and children, especially, of course, if they are on the other side of the political aisle. Indeed, they aren't simply refusing to condemn the early release of a child killer after he spent less than a decade in prison. They're also explaining in writing that they want to see the children of conservatives die in their mother's arms. They want to see conservative Supreme Court justices hunted down and shot for their rulings on abortion. And the Democrat Party, from the base all the way up to the party leaders, is unanimously standing by in support of all of this. Now, the case of Virginia Attorney General nominee Jay Jones all by itself should be the death knell of the entire Democrat Party. This case all by itself would tell you the Democrat Party needs to be, in a metaphorical sense, burned to the ground. In case you missed it, the National Review published text messages from Jay Jones to a Republican state legislator. They were sent around 8 a.m. on August 8th, 2022. And Jones was upset that Republicans, including Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert, had put out statements mourning the recent death of a different state legislator who was a moderate Democrat. So here's what Jones wrote in the text to Republican House Delegate Kerry Coyner. Quote, "If those guys die before me," Jones wrote, referencing his Republican colleagues, "I will go to their funerals to piss on their graves, to send them out awash in something." Jones then said that if he had only 2 bullets and had the opportunity to shoot Cambodian dictator Pol Pot, Hitler, or the Republican Speaker of the House, he'd choose the Republican Speaker of the House every time. Quote, 3 people, 2 bullets, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. Even as the Republican legislator tells Jones to stop sending messages like this, because again, Jones was sending this in writing, in text message, to a Republican. That's how brazen this is, and how sure he was that he would never be held accountable for it. And even as the person that he's talking to tells him to stop and that says how upsetting all this is, he continues. According to the National Review, Jones, quote, suggested he wished Gilbert's wife could watch her own child die in her arms so that Gilbert might reconsider his political views, prompting Coyner to hang up the phone in disgust. Then Coyner sent his text to Jones, quote, you were talking about hoping Jennifer Gilbert's children would die. And then Jones responds, yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. I mean, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes. Now, to be very clear about this, the man who sent those text messages has been selected by the Democrat Party to be the chief law enforcement official in the state of Virginia. He sent these messages, again, to a Republican colleague. And even when he was told to stop, he persisted. He clarified as explicitly as he possibly could that it's acceptable to wish death on Republicans on the theory that they're all fascists, including the children are fascists. And as Jones put it, quote, only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. That is now the official platform of the Democrat Party. This is what they believe. If you don't agree with them, you and your entire family deserve to die. And that's what the mainstream of the party believes. And you know that because after these text messages surfaced, no Democrats have called for Jay Jones to resign. Not a single one. Not one single Democrat has agreed that this is disqualifying. And most of them haven't even criticized him for it. Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat nominee for governor in Virginia, has stood by Jones. The current Speaker of the House just spoke in a church pulpit, and all he had to say about the text is that, well, they're a distraction. Watch.
So we need to understand something. We have to be mature in our thinking and how we vote. We can't get distracted because they want us to get distracted by a text message here or something else. Stay focused.
Now, meanwhile, here's a statement from the Virginia Beach Democratic Committee, which plays a major role in electing Democrats in the state. Quote, the Virginia Beach Democratic Committee reaffirms its full support of Jay Jones for Attorney General. Recent press may have spotlighted past mistakes. We say, let those without sin cast the first stone. Yes, who among us haven't repeatedly called for the execution of the children of our political opponents? Who among us doesn't fantasize about murdering children, is what they're asking. Now, hopefully you're starting to see how that case in Kentucky was not an accident. This is what Democrats believe. They don't care if children die. They want children to die. What matters to them is power. And if it helps them in their power grab, then they're in favor of it. For his part, Jay Jones put out a similar non-apology. You can see it on the screen there. He says, like all people, I've sent text messages I regret. Well, again, cutting in here. No, not all people send text messages like this. This is coming from the left and only the left. All right, let me paint a picture. It's Tuesday morning. You reach your supplements and vitamins and you get an empty bottle. Great. Well, now you get to spend your lunch break driving to some overpriced vitamin store because you forgot to reorder again. Or you could just make it automatic with Balance of Nature. I became a Balance of Nature preferred customer because, honestly, I have better things to do than remember when I'm running low on supplements. Every 28 days, they just show up like clockwork. No brain power required. And here's the part that's actually pretty sweet. You get the lowest price they offer every single time. No coupon hunting, no flash sale nonsense, just the best price automatically. And an extra bonus. Shipping is totally free every month. Nice to see a company that doesn't nickel and dime you to death. But here's what really surprised me. You get your own personal health coach, an actual human who checks in with you and helps keep you on track. Go to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code Walsh for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com. Promo code Walsh. Your future self will thank you. And these were not texts that he sent like decades ago when he was a wayward teenager. He sent them a couple of years ago when he was an adult man in his 30s. Jones also sat down for an interview in which he again refused to take any responsibility. Listen.
A lot of politics is about trust. I can think of nothing more horrific than a mother having to hold her dying child. How can Virginians trust a man who said something so horrific, so callously?
Well, again, I am so deeply, deeply sorry for what I said, and I wish that it hadn't happened, and I would take it back if I could.
This is how sociopaths and malignant narcissists speak. They don't acknowledge that they did something wrong. Instead, they claim that they are actually the victim. Something happened to him, he says. He regrets that something occurred. Not that he was solely responsible for that thing occurring. And the reason he's getting away with this is that the entire Democrat establishment is behind him. And that includes the press. Here's the Washington Post's take, for example, and they stop short of calling on Jones to drop out. Instead, they say, quote, Jones has a month to convince voters that his hateful rhetoric does not reflect how he'd behave if elected as Attorney General. So I guess the idea is that Jay Jones needs to, pinky promise that he actually doesn't want to slaughter the children of Republicans, even though he put it in writing, addressed to a Republican colleague. Right, he's got a month to convince us. Think about that for a second. They're saying he has a month to convince us that he actually doesn't want the children of his opponents to die. You would think that if you're a month out from an election and that's your challenge is to convince voters that you don't want children to die, you'd think that would be like, okay, you're finished. your campaign's dead in the water. That's not the case here. I mean, the Washington Post fully understands exactly what it's doing here. Their entire audience, such as it is, agrees with Jay Jones. So does the editorial staff. They all agree. And now their goal is to run interference for him so that uninformed voters don't see that until it's too late. It's impossible to overstate just how united Democrats are when it comes to this objective. They are now the party of murder and indiscriminate political violence. That's what they are. It's not just the media and the politicians and the rank and file MSNBC viewers who are on board. The Biden judges have joined in as well. I mean, they're going out of their way to give Democrat political assassins a free pass. And that's why Biden Judge Deborah Boardman just sentenced the man who traveled across the country to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, a crime that, according to the federal sentencing guideline, should have put him in prison for at least 30 years, sentenced him to 8 years. And with time served, the assassin, a man named Nicholas Roski, will be a free man in 4 years. And what was the judge's reasoning? Well, by her own admission, she gave Roski a lighter sentence because he says he's a woman. Here's the Daily Wire's Luke Rosiak quote. The sentencing took more than 7 hours, with much of the time dedicated to discussing how Roski's transgender identity meant he should get a lighter sentence. In a more than hour-long speech justifying the light sentence, Boardman said that Miss Roski came out to herself as transgender in 2020, but kept it secret. Miss Roski's sister came out as gay 2 years prior, but Miss Roski saw that their parents struggled to reconcile her sexuality with their religious beliefs. I'm heartened that this terrible infraction has helped the Roski family accept their daughter for who she is. This is a man they're talking about there, by the way. He. So yes, the Biden judge just called the attempted assassination of a conservative Supreme Court justice, in which the assassin was carrying a firearm, knife, and zip ties, called it an infraction. The man who traveled across the country explicitly because he was upset with Kavanaugh's rulings on the Second Amendment and abortion and was going to kill him, kidnap him and kill him, well, he just made a little innocent mistake. And actually, the judge says that she's hardened. She's hardened that as a result of this attempted murder, that the assassin's family has come to accept this man and his transgender identity. Now, to be clear, this is the quote-unquote woman in question. We'll put him up on the screen. Yeah, just look at that natural, effortless, feminine beauty. Again, it's a farce. I mean, it's a thinly veiled effort to excuse a Democrat political assassin. And they're probably going to try the same strategy with Charlie's killer. I wouldn't be surprised by that. Oh, he says he's a woman now. Well, who are we to judge the fact that he's a violent psychopath? Now, as the sentencing hearing continued, the judge explicitly stated that she's going to let the assassin out of prison early because he might not be able to get cross-sex hormones in prison. Quote, the judge continued, she'll be imprisoned in a male facility even though she's a transgender prisoner pursuant to an executive order from the president. Before the executive order, that wasn't the case. Earlier in the hearing, Boardman lashed out at the prosecutors and President Donald Trump, saying, let's not hide the fact that President Trump issued an executive order saying transgender inmates would be assigned to prisons with their biological sex. With the injunction in place, Ms. Roski could receive gender-affirming care. But if that injunction goes away, she could be denied it. So when I sentence her, I take into account that she is a transgender woman. Now, as you may have noticed, this is the kind of punishment that Democrat foot soldiers will receive. If they identify as women, they get out early. If they identify as mentally ill, they get out early. If they have 40 prior arrests, they get out early. If they admit on camera that they should be put to death after slaughtering a child as he sleeps, they get out early. And the media will immediately get to work in an attempt to sell the narrative. Take a look at these articles. You can see them here. These are from the New York Times, ABC, CNN, and the AP. Every single outlet refers to Nicholas Roski as a woman. None of them use his legal name. They've erased his past identity, his actual identity, as if it never existed. None of these outlets were doing this as recently as 2 months ago. The Daily Wire broke the story that in sentencing documents, the assassin's lawyers declared that he was really a woman, in addition to being severely mentally ill and suicidal, coincidentally enough. And in an instant, right on cue, every single corporate media outlet went along with this obvious fabrication. If you were reading some of these articles, you'd have no idea about any of this. Now, just to give you a sense of how quickly they rewrite history, here's how New York Times covered this story when the man was arrested. You see it here. Quote, man pleads guilty to trying to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh. Nicholas J. Roski, 29, of California, faces a maximum sentence of life in prison. So much for that. Now this man is a woman, we're told, and instead of life in prison, he'll be out in 4 years so he can hunt more conservatives on the order of top Democrats. There's no reason for anyone to entertain the left's elaborate misdirection campaigns or euphemisms anymore. It's time to say what we all know is true. I mean, when we say the left wants us dead, I mean, here it is. This is the official position of the Democrat Party. It's what the party stands for. There is no atrocity, no matter how horrific, that would be unacceptable to them. That's why ICE officers are being shot at and run over. It's why child killers are walking free and psychopaths are on the ballot for Attorney General. And it's why, as we near a month after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, it's now more urgent than ever to dismantle the vast terrorist networks within the Democrat Party before any more innocent conservative men, women, and children are slaughtered. And I'll close with this cheerful thought, because we have to really think about this. If Jay Jones becomes the Attorney General of Virginia, if that happens, which it may well happen, every conservative in the state will know that the chief law enforcement officer thinks that they deserve to be murdered along with their children. And not only will they know that, they will also know that the Democrat voters in the state, their countrymen, their own neighbors, their friends, right, even their family members in many cases, have endorsed that sentiment. That will be, without exaggeration, the death of any sense of legitimacy in the system. It will be the end of any hope, of any semblance of unity. I mean, it'll be the kind of thing that starts civil wars. And I'm not saying there will be one. I'm not saying that I want there to be one. I'm saying it's the kind of thing that starts them, which is a dark and harrowing thought. But these are, sad to say, dark and harrowing times. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.